Hello everybody, and you're very welcome back to the channel. So those of you that don't know, my name is Alan and this is the Agri-Motive Farm Machinery YouTube channel. So today this video is a video about the David Brown case sort of changeover. Now anyone that hasn't seen our David Brown video already, we've done a video probably about 5 months ago now. It was the most popular video in this channel with over 65,000 views. Anyone that hasn't seen that video, I'd recommend you go back and look at that video. This video is a follow-on from that. So it's the changeover from the David Brown brand, the takeover from Tenneco, and then into the JI Case takeover, where they kind of merged together, and David Brown, the name, it ceased basically, and it became Case from 1983 onwards. A lot of the material in this video comes from Heritage Machines, so a big thanks to Jonathan Whitlam and Heritage Machines. A lot of the information that I have gathered for this, the research I've done for this video, has come from them. So thanks to them for their fantastic information. Also, I have a very, very special request from all my viewers that I'll get into now in a few minutes in today's video. Moving on, yeah, the weather has improved a lot. It's up, it's still sherry, it's still damp, but there is work being done. I'm not going to say farmers are going to catch up and work, certainly not tillage farmers. It is a sort of rescue mission at this stage. It's damage limitation, it's getting some cereal crops into the ground, it's getting some potatoes harvested, and it's getting the potato crop in for next year where possible. Cattle are out in the field, silage has been cut, land is drying up, it's drying up well, so it's badly needed and badly grateful for it. We're grateful for the improvement. To anyone who, to all our new subscribers, thanks for the subscription. You're very welcome to the channel, and to all my regular viewers that watch and comment every week, as always, thank you very much. It's the comments, it's the likes, it's the thumbs up, it's all that, it's the views that keep this video going, to keep this channel going, that helps push it along. If you are watching regularly, as I always say, if you are watching regularly and you haven't subscribed, please just hit the subscription button. It does help this channel greatly, and if you could give us a quick thumbs up or a like or a comment on the video, it also helps. Anyone that doesn't know, if you're new to the channel, if you're new to my company, to me, you'll find us on Facebook as well. So that's Agri-Motive Farm Machinery on Facebook. On Instagram, we do a little bit on TikTok. It's more to promote the YouTube videos on TikTok than anything else. And of course, for any professional services, our website, www.agrimotivefarmmachinery.com, and you'll find out all about us there. So a special request. Now, this is something that has come up. I've seen a couple of other YouTubers mention this in the last couple of probably the last couple of weeks. Farmer Phil touched on it in one of his videos recently. So, all right, this video, I could get 10,000 viewers on this video, but when I say 10,000 viewers, that's 10,000 YouTube views. But I don't know how many people have watched this video. So just take, for example, I normally sit down on a Sunday morning with maybe my dad and with my son, and we'd watch a video. It could be The Flying Fergie Man, or it could be I Farm, We Farm, or some of those videos. The three of us sit down together, but it only counts as one view. So what I am asking people to do is, if you could, even if just 50 or 100 of you could, just in the comment section, put the number 1, 2, 3. If you're watching it on your own, put in the number 1. If you're watching it with somebody else, if it's 2 people or 3 people, put in 1, 2, 3, and 4. And if I got 100, I could get an average from that. So I could have 100 views on YouTube, or 1,000 views, or 10,000 views on YouTube, but I could actually have 15,000 eyeballs, 15,000 people that actually watch it. And that's to get an idea from an advertisement point of view, how many people are actually watching the videos. Not so much YouTube views, but how many people are watching the videos. And it's something that I want to gather this kind of information, a lot for myself, but for when you've got advertisers or promoters that want to promote anything on your channel, it's good to have an idea of the actual amount of people that are putting eyeballs on the videos. So yeah, without further ado, we're going to go straight into the story of David Brown. So yeah, of course, as I said, in 1983, the David Brown name disappeared from the bonnet in favour of the Case branding with the launch of the 94 series tractors that were built in Meltham in Yorkshire. So just a quick refresh on the David Brown Company itself. So the David Brown Company was famous for gear manufacturing when it began building its first tractor in 1936 for Harry Ferguson. The Ferguson A was built at Meltham Mills, a factory set up at an old cotton mill not far from David Brown Company's head of business in the Yorkshire town of Huddersfield. From 1939, David Brown began producing its own tractors. It began with the VAC 1, painted in a colour that would become synonymous with the brand for many years, which was, of course, the hunting pink. So a slight change to currant red, followed by a drastic change to chocolate brown and orchid orange in the mid-1960s, was followed by Tenneco's acquisition of the tractor building side of the David Brown business in 1972, which subsequently merged it with GI Case Farm Equipment Division. And that's roughly where we left the last David Brown video. So moving on from there now, what happened next? So apart from the change of chassis colour to power red, or as like more like an orange, the David Brown tractors continued as before, with larger case tractors gradually being introduced as part of the range, with a wider North American market now open to the Yorkshire manufacturer. However, 11 years after the merger, that would all change forever. So Case, obviously, Tenneco Case bought into David Brown to get this foothold in the UK, the Irish, the European market, and that client base, that customer base that had been built up by David Brown. And this is something that we've seen with loads of different manufacturers that we have spoken about in other videos. So the revamp, so the David Brown tractor range that was being built at the time of the takeover remained in production after 1972 with the new power red skid unit and wheels and white tin work, with the addition of the small cased name on the side of the bonnet. But the David Brown brand was still the most poignant, most prominent. So anyone that is familiar with them will know the David Brown name was big, and then you'd have the little Case logo, at the side of the sticker on the side where David Brown was. You have the little Case logo. So that was a sign of things to come. So the range throughout the 1970s included the futuristic, that hydro shift transmission models that gave an early form of power shift transmission, and the original David Brown safety cabs were improved as the decade wore on, culminating in the use of much more satisfactory, quiet versions and the use of a user-friendly cab sourced from the famous Danish firm Secura, who make cabs for loads of different manufacturers, with models ranging from the 48 horsepower, the 885, up to the 91 horsepower, 1412. A concise range had been established by the company, but it was, realised that improvements would be needed for the 1980s to keep up with the competition. Most of the emphasis on an improved range was on a better cab than what had been offered previously, as well as a more modern bonnet lines, larger, more powerful machines at the top end of the range. The result of those requirements was what became the 90 series, which was introduced in 1979. The 90 series was not actually new at this point. Designation had been used for the six-cylinder Case models first launched in the USA in 1977. The use of this numbering scheme on the Yorkshire-built range was a sign of the beginning of more, that unity between the North American Case range and the tractors that were produced in Britain. The 90 series certainly looked very different to earlier David Brown tractors, with the new bonnet sloping slightly towards the front, matched with the new Secura cab, which had given much better visibility than previous cabs used by the firm. With a larger glass area and wide opening doors, plus extra ventilation, it was easily obtainable thanks to the opening of that roof hatch and the openable side windows, as well as a larger opening rear screen. Under the new skin, though, most of the range used the trusted engines and other mechanical units that had been established on the previous David Brown tractors, including that famous hydro shift transmission as an option on the larger two-wheel drive models. So the range consisted of 5 models, starting with the 3-cylinder 1190, and then moving on to the 4-cylinder 58 horsepower 1290, the 67 horsepower 1390, and the 83 horsepower 1490, while the largest was that 6-cylinder 103 horsepower 1690. This latter flagship was the company's first foray into 6-cylinder tractors since the 50D of the 1950s. Thanks to the big Case tractors being built in Racine in North America, the 90 series in the UK was extended with 5 models from 120 horsepower to 273 horsepower, although these didn't bear any relation to the Melton built David Brown tractors, except for the lettering series, the 90 series. Now, these were a big lump of a tractor. We spoke about we didn't speak about these yet, but we will get to when we're talking about our international range in America. Big lump of tractors that were all imported from Racine in the USA. So the David Brown 90 series was all produced in either 2 or 4 wheel drive, except for the little 1190, which was only ever produced as a 2 wheel drive machine. David Brown had developed its own front wheel axle, that front wheel drive for the range, but this was only used up until 1982, when it was switched out for a unit brought from Carraro in Italy. This was one of several improvements that were made to the 90 series during its production run, with the 1690 receiving particular attention, including, it had more horsepower, more output. Carraro obviously were very, very very popular Italian manufacturer of front axles and drivetrains and stuff like that, so it would have been a hugely reliable system to have on their tractor. The 90 series had done very well for the company, but it had suffered a few teething troubles, some of which had been sorted, but ultimately the decision had been taken to relaunch the 90 series, especially as a new tractor was planned to extend the number of models. So in 1983, the new 94 series was launched. However, the new range, although based on the old 90 series, looked very different, and it came with the loss of the famous David Brown name at this stage in 1983. For the first time, the case name was a prominent brand, and instead of the small case nameplate on the bottom of the radiator grille or on the side of the bonnet, as with the 90 series, now things were very different, with the case name proudly displayed across the side of the bonnet. So David Brown name on tractors had ceased to exist. So in contrast, the David Brown name was nowhere to be seen. So after 11 years of being part of the Tenneco empire and thus part of the JI Case Corporation, David Brown tractors had ceased to exist. They may still have been built at the same facilities in Melton Mills and by largely the same workforce, but from now on the product was emphatically a Case branded one. The new 94 series retained the same bonnet design as its predecessor and the Secura cab, but the colour had changed. White remained as the main livery, but the power red skinned unit had been replaced by black, which made the tractor stand out dramatically from what had gone before. There were now 6 models instead of the original 5 of the 90 series, and most of them had also been changed in some form or another, except for the little 1194 that was only different to the 1190 in terms of the colour and branding. And as before, the 3-cylinder 48 horsepower tractor was only produced in 2-wheel drive format. In contrast, the next model up, the 1294, now had an increase of 3 horsepower to make this 4-cylinder machine a 61 horsepower tractor, while the 1394 gained more, with the 72 horsepower being boosted by 5 horsepower more than the 1390 it replaced, thanks to the fitting of a turbocharger. So the 1394 had a turbo, whereas the 1390 didn't. In 1494, the 1494 retained the 83 horsepower figure that had held by its predecessor, while the 1694 had slightly more power with 108 horsepower rating, making it a large machine for the time and a true flagship to the new range. So there was a new model introduced, another model was introduced at the same time that had no predecessors, and this of course was the 1594, which became a very popular 6-cylinder model producing 95 horsepower. Development work had led to the possibility of the 94 series being offered with the hydroshift transmissions on both 2 and 4-wheel drive tractors. Previously, it was said the technology used had prevented 4-wheel drive tractors from being fitted with the advanced gearbox system. A creeper box was now also available for the 1394 and the 1494, and the 94 series range was completed by the 1294, 1394 and the 1494 being offered as high clearance models for row crop work. A feature that had also been featured on the early 90 series versions, although we hadn't seen too many of them around. So power for the 1594 came from a naturally aspirated 6-cylinder engine, produced 95 horsepower, as we said. The same engine was also turbocharged for the 108 horsepower in the 1694. So new to the 94 series was the addition of the hydroshift to the 4-wheel drive models. This award-winning transmission provided 4 clutchless gears in each of the 3 forward ranges as well as reverse, which it operated by a small lever on the right hand side of the dash, albeit sometimes at a bit of a stretch. So anyone that has driven the hydro shift ones, will know that up at the side of the dash, side of the steering wheel, you have to reach forward to change your hydro shift gears through 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you have the big red gear lever here for changing your ranges. It was a good system, but it was a little bit of a reach. And I know some people did add little extra to weld it on, or made little extra brackets just to bring that lever a little bit closer to them, so they didn't have to reach out of the seat when they were changing gears. And it was a little bit of an odd shape to the gear lever. So it's also worth noting that the synchromesh gearbox was also available. 540 and 1000 speed PTO options were selected in the cab by engaged by pulling the PTO lever while using a hand-operated type clutch to the right of the driver, which David Brown operators would have been very accustomed to. The Secura cab is a familiar place for David Brown and Case fans, with its bright grey dashboard, high driving position, good levels of visibility giving a nice airy feel. The backside of the console is neatly arranged controls, with linkage and spool valves falling easily at hand. The Hydroshift models had that single red handled gear stick for range selection just to the right of the seat. One detail overlooking these models is the absence of cab mounted work lights, with only a solitary plough lamp mounted on the rear mudguard. In 1987, a special commemorative edition of the 94 series was launched to celebrate 50 years of production at the David Brown Melton plant. These tractors featured a special logo across the bonnet, as well as script writing on each side of the bonnet as well. So they were a very distinctive, I think I have a couple of pictures here to show, they were a very distinctive looking tractor. So again, big changes were on the way. The 1980s continued to be, was a difficult time for farm machinery manufacturers with decreasing sales. This led to one of the biggest shake-ups in the agricultural world when it was announced that the owner of J.I. Case, Tenneco, was to buy International Harvester's agricultural division. Now, this was a huge coming together of all these companies. The new Case IH company would see the Case and International Harvester lines of tractors merged into one side range, and in 1985, the white and black Case 94 series metamorphosed into the Case IH 94 series, now with the famous red and black colour scheme that we see today on all Case tractors pretty much. So if you haven't seen my international video, I have a full video done on the American range of international tractors. The next video in this range will be on the that international worldwide series, so the ones that we would have been, the international tractors we would have been very familiar with here in Europe, in Ireland, in the UK, and across Europe. I will be doing a video on them. It'll be coming up very, very soon, and that will tie all of this in together. So, so despite the new branding, the 94 series remained much as before, although so soon both the 1194 and the 1294 models will be dropped in favour of IH models built in the Doncaster factory, also situated in Yorkshire. This began the first signs of a rationalisation of the models produced by one, which was at one stage two separate companies. The 94 series carried on, complete with its much larger Racine-built sisters, right up until 1988, when the factory of Melton Mills was finally closed and the story of David Brown tractors as it was had reached an end. It's not really surprising, I suppose, that it was the Doncaster factory that would survive out of the two, as it was much more modern facility compared to the rather cramped and archaic conditions at Melton, which, after all, it was a cotton mill that had been converted into a factory for building machines, and it was very, very confined space. It was sad, though, that not only the David Brown legacy, but also the successful 94 series was lost when Melton Mills closed in 1988. So we look at the legacy then, obviously, in 1990, Case IH announced a new range of models that ultimately replaced the larger Melton-built 94 series. The 4 and 6 cylinder line of tractors built in the former IH plant in Neuss-en-Rhein in Germany was called, obviously, the Maxuum, that we all became very, very familiar with, and which is a fantastic tractor and a collector's item, as all these tractors are. They're all collector's items at this stage. But the 5130 and the 5140, they're a beautiful looking tractor. When they came out, they really put it up to the John Deeres at the time, and the Fords and the Fergusons. They did kind of stand out. They were very, very popular. There was a there was a big case dealer beside us, Midlow Garages, over our way, and they would have sold a load of these tractors. So on the face of it, the Maxuum, it was a shiny new tractor that looked completely different from anything that had gone before. Stylish good looks and modern features, including a semi-power shift transmission. Look a bit closer though, and you can see the signs, what they were based on. It turns out that it was, of course, the 94 series. Although fitted with Cummins engines, the transmission was an uprated hydroshift, and the cab underneath the bigger roof and cosmetic dressing was a unit supplied by Secura based on that was used in the 90 and the 94 series. In fact, the preliminary design work on the project that was to later become the Maxuum was undertaken at Meltham with a view to replace the 94 series. So in a way, the 94 series lived on into the 1990s in the shape of the Maxuum. Then, of course, speaking about living on, there are many Case 94 and, and Case IH 94 series tractors that are still at work on farms and with enthusiasts and collectors all across Ireland, the UK and Europe. It may now have been 41 years since the original 94 series was introduced back in 1983, but the range was a landmark in more than one way than was the demise of the David Brown name. It went on to become a very successful product, survived one of the most, the largest mergers of the decade, and was ultimately a basis for a very successful line of models that was produced in Germany up until 1997. Affectionately known by many as the Magpie range, thanks to the distinctive black and white colours, the original Case 94 series remains one of the best produced at Meltham Mills. It was a result of 4 years of field experience with the 90 series and included many improvements following on from that experience. To David Brown, it represented a sad loss of that manufacturer's name from the side of the tractor bonnets, but it also retained all that was the best of the David Brown firm, from the engineers to the builders to the lads that worked on the line, who produced reliable, sophisticated and dependable tractors for farming the world over. And it's amazing to me when I set out to do my first David Brown video, and as I said, it by far and away is the most popular video that I've done. 65,000 views on it now at this stage. I've done John Deere videos and they've barely scraped a couple of thousand, and others as well. The David Brown one just was by far and away the most popular. But looking at the 94 range, just looking at the basic specifications, so looking down through the models, the 1194 had a Case 2.7 litre, 3-cylinder, 48 horsepower, 12x4 synchro, and it weighed in at just over 2 tonne. The 1294 had a 3.6 litre, 4-cylinder, 61 horsepower with the same transmission, 12x4 synchro, and it weighed in at just over 3 tonne in the 4-wheel drive model. So then the 1394 had the 3.6 turbocharged, and that came in at 72 horsepower, and it had obviously that 12x4 synchro, or it had that hydroshift, that famous hydroshift model, and it came in at 3.2 tons in the 4-wheel drive version. The 1494, again, the 3.6 litre 4-cylinder turbo, 83 horsepower, and the same transmission as the 1394 coming in hydroshift. So it was just the 1494 was just a bigger chassis tractor. It came in at 3.7 tonne. Yeah, it was 500 kilos heavier than 1394. So the new one that came into the range there was the 1594, and that was a marked step up then in size of engine. You're into the 6-cylinder there at that stage, 5.4 litre, 6-cylinder, 95 horsepower, 12x4 synchro transmission, hydroshift, weighing in at 4.2 tons. And the last flagship of the lineup, the 1694, with the same 5.4 litre, 6-cylinder turbo, 108 horsepower, and it came in the 12x4 hydroshift, and it weighed in at 4.3 tonne. And if you have one of these tractors, yeah, you're doing very well. They are a fantastic machine. They are hugely underrated because they are a very, very capable, a very reliable, economical workhorse, and there's loads and loads of them out there, and they are loved, as are most of the tractors that we deal with on this channel. But they are, coming from the heritage that they came from. A lot of people see them more as a David Brown than they do see them as a Case. They just seen the Case took over David Brown. changed the name, but it really was a David Brown tractor. It was the David Brown heritage that came through into these machines until, I suppose, the end of the Maxuum, that Maxuum era. So we will deal further on down the line. We will deal with the Maxuum. We will deal with the Magnum. When we are next we'll get our international worldwide series video done, and we will be progressing things on. One thing I do want to mention is that I know people have said to me, why don't you do Fendt? Why don't you do, other models that I haven't touched yet? I will get to all these models eventually, but I have part 2 of John Deere to do. I want to do the international worldwide series. I've got the next Case International one to do. I've got a couple that I need to follow up on. The Chamberlain one, I've got one more in Chamberlain to finish off. I don't want to have a load of them hanging over me that just part 2s and 3s of these videos coming up, but I've started doing studying on Fendt. I have a Universal one coming up, Universal and Belarus. A lot of people ask me about Belarus tractors. After I had done the Zetor and stuff like that, people ask me, "Oh, do Belarus, do Universal?" Yeah, no, I will. I can get into them all, but these videos do take a lot of time. It's not like you walk into a field and you video what you're doing and you just talk about it. These take a lot of research. And I want to make sure that, as I say in all my videos, that everything is correct and accurate as best as I can get it. Because if it's not, people will not be long about telling me about it. That's a fact. So anyway, lads, thanks a million for watching. Thanks for watching. If you haven't yet, please give us a thumbs up, give us a like, give us a subscribe. And if there is 2 or 3 of you watching this video, please just put a comment in, put in 1, 2 or 3 into the comment section, and I can do my little bit of research from that. So until next week, thanks a million for watching, and I will see you all soon.